it's shining down into the temple on top of these solid, shining black. If you'll look this up now. So that's created there. And then you have Menkara's, then you have Menkara's pyramid. And after this, we'll start moving a little bit faster through history, but this is, something we slow down and pay attention to.
Yeah.
So, so after Khufu's entire complex, and I'll add one little thing about Khufu's Valley Temple, is that people, it's commonly people go into it and they're just so blown away by the construction that they can't help but be compelled to say, this has got to be some kind of like super ancient temple that was built by a different civilization or something. But I think there's a key piece of evidence there that shows that this must have been Egyptian, dynastic Egyptian, regardless of age and time. When you walk through that temple, carved into the calcite floor, and some sections of the floor, I believe, are granite. And really, this would have been the most beautiful temple in all of Egypt. When you're walking into the doors on the outside, you have the limestone bedrock that actually slopes down onto the ground. You can actually see the ancient bank of the Nile right there as you're walking up to it. The bank of the Nile would have connected, like went right up to this Valley Temple. Maybe we should pull up the Valley Temple. If you just look that up, you'll see it.
Valley Temple, Egypt.
So you can see where it slopes off, and there's these stone docks that actually come out, just like how we have out here, in Jersey. You have these docks that come out, but these would have been made out of stone. And then obviously, naturally, yeah, so this is the inside of the Sphinx. Yeah. This is the inside of the Sphinx Temple. So each one of those is one block. Like that column right there is one block. The lintel going across between each columns, those are all one block. I mean,
one block.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Can you do the aerial one that looks like it's at the bottom?
God, they look like gold bars.
So that's Hatshepsut's temple. Do one to the right. This looks like a very old photo of the Valley Temple aerial shot. Can you look up Valley Temple Egypt aerial? Maybe we can get something from the sky because it kind of is important for the way I'm going to depict this. Man, these may not be super common. Maybe do the one at the top left. There we go. All right, so you see at the bottom right, that is the Valley Temple next to the Sphinx. It's an absolutely gigantic temple. Now, at that front, so the face of it that's to the right, that's facing east. Can you see the little dark spot that makes a triangular shape in the photo?
Where?
It's just right in front of that eastern face. At the bottom of that wall, you see what I'm talking about, right?
No, I don't.
So, do you see the temple that's to the bottom right of the Sphinx here?
Yes.
With the four big walls?
Yes.
That wall that's to the right, the outside of that is facing east. Does that make sense?
Can you go point, would you mind, on the screen?
Yeah.
So I can see this? Because I'm a little bit confused.
So this right here is facing...
Oh, okay.
You see this platform that's standing here?
Yes. He's saying there's a platform to the right of this that he's pointing at.
This platform is the dock. And the Nile was right there. That's.
Oh, all right. So the Niles. Can you just repeat that in the mic for people? So they got that right. That platform on the bottom right is the dock, and the Niles in front of it.
So you have this little platform in front. That was the dock where you pulled up to the Valley Temple, and I mean, a couple feet from that eastern wall was where the ancient Nile harbor was. You sailed right up to this temple.
Whoa.
Now, this temple, when you walked in, is comprised, the inner walls of it are comprised out of this, very impressive megalithic red Aswan granite stones that you can imagine when they're polished in their day and time, they're just gleaming. I mean, just so impressive. But the floor is solid crystal white calcite. And in the ceilings, can you go back to the photo of all the columns? In the ceilings, this is probably a sun temple because it's, dedicated to Khafre.
Right there?
Yes. Maybe go to any of the others and look for an inlet in the floor. Okay. Yeah, right there, bottom right. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. You see the little holes in the floor?
Oh, yeah. In front of
that is where those 30 some odd statues of Khafre would have set. And so the lintels that are sitting on top of these columns, these are going, long way. There would have been other lintels going, or going, these right here are going east and west. There would have been other lintels going north and south, but it wasn't meant as an actual roof. They had little, you can see little sections. So can you see on the top lintels that are going above these columns, if you go up a little bit, can you see little indentations in those columns where another column would have come in the opposite way? So this would have created this little hole in the ceiling where when the sun is directly in the sky, it's shining down into the temple on top of these solid, shining black. If you'll look this up now, look up diorite Khafre statue.
Diarite.
Yeah, so Diorite, and then Khafre. Yeah, so you definitely want to put Khafre on there. So it's Khafra. It's spelled all different ways, but it'll come up right.
Okay. Is that Khafre?
Yeah, that's fine. Here it is.
That one?
So these are the Khafre statues. Go to the one that's all the way to the right, if you would.
Right there.
Here we go. These are the Khafre.
Is that an eagle?
It's the falcon. It's like this, the sacred falcon. And so these are these solid diorite Khafre statues. You see the way the sun is hitting it on the top?
Yeah.
That's the way it would have looked in the temple. So you have solid black, shining, most magnificent statues in all of Egypt sitting inside, and that's undeniably Egyptian. I mean, that's what it is. You're looking at it, it's Egyptian.
Look at the face and how perfectly carved that is.
It's absolutely amazing.
The ear.
And the falcon being separated from the head, but it's all one piece of stone. I mean, it's truly amazing.
It's remarkable.
And the knees on this guy, like the way that they're carved, I mean, it's just so incredible. You can go to a full body one too and see that there.
And it's different because in Egypt, to compare and contrast here, in Egypt, they casted their statues and their figures with far more stoicism, whereas there was a more artistic endeavor in like ancient Rome with how they carve things and develop things.
Well, the famous philosopher Plato, he didn't really care for Greek statuary work. He didn't like it. He thought that it was trying to put on too much. He wasn't really much of a fan of statuary artwork in that way. But to him, Egyptian artwork was okay because it wasn't trying to fool you in a way. You knew that it wasn't realistic. This isn't actually exactly what Khafre looked like. It is a pharaonic style, and Plato was okay with that. And so when you look all throughout, Greek history, their art style, like if you look at their old statues from 700 BC, they're so much worse in quality than statues from, the height of Athens, 450 BC, 400 BC. It's so much worse than that. And the art style changes over time and it becomes much more magnificent, but it's also highly stylized. Egyptian architecture or Egyptian statuary work is very simple, iconic, elegant, timeless, and the key word here is eternal. It was never, ever meant to change. If we go look at that Narmer palette that symbolizes what we were talking about, the smiting and the smiting of the northern king and the unification of Egypt, it is exactly the same style that we will see Egyptian artwork for the rest of Egyptian history. They had absolutely no interest in artistic innovation. Artistic style in Egypt wasn't meant to change and evolve over time. It was established at the very beginning, and it was kept exactly the same for over 3,000 years. It was never, ever meant to change.
That's crazy that it stays like that, because for how long of a time period that is. Think about how much our art changes every fucking year.
Yeah.
And has forever, by the way, for what seems like forever, by the way.
Yeah, well, when art is a central core part of your religion and it's meant for the gods, or it's meant for your religion, it's meant as a symbol of who you are as a civilization. It's meant for who you are as a civilization. You never want it to change. You have no interest in it ever changing, and it stays exactly the same for all of Egyptian history for over 3,000 years.
Also, when you have pharaohs who are essentially calling themselves gods.
Sure.
It's like, well, this is the God way. This is what we do.
Exactly. It's kind of like they're not so empirical, fashion. They have no interest in becoming anybody else or usurping anybody else. they are the end all be
That's
all
it.
of all civilization. Everybody else is below the Egyptians. They have no interest in assimilating to anybody else or allowing too many people to assimilate into them. They want to be Egyptian. There will always be Egyptian. And that's why they lasted for 3,000 years. They're the world's most conservative civilization ever. And their reign shows it. So these statues are little Easter eggs that are all throughout Egypt, and you're going to see them. Every little museum you go to, there's going to be this Khafre statue. So this would have been the most beautiful monument, really, in all of Egypt. To me, the most impressive: white, shining calcite, crystal floor, huge singular stone columns, and then in between the columns, it will allow sunlight to come through, and the sun would fall on the physical embodiment of the sun god Khafre. And so you would be sailing down the Nile to this big, magnificent temple. Yeah, and the sun is casting in right on him, and you'd be able to go into the temple. And probably the reason there were so many of these statues is probably conspicuous consumption. He had the money to be able to do it. He had the resources to be able to do it. He's this powerful. He can do whatever he wants. This is the most powerful person on the planet. No wonder he's doing stuff like this. But also there's so many statues there so that you can have so many people come in and visit him, the embodiment of Khafre, the embodiment of the god Ra, and leave offerings in front of him. So you have this big open space that's kind of like a museum or a tribute to, it's the center of the cult of the sun, basically. And this is where normal people could come and get a glimpse of the pharaoh. So after Khafre's necropolis construction, we then move on to Menkaura. There's a little bit less to say here. He's a much less powerful pharaoh. His pyramid is much smaller. The mortuary temple is very impressive. Lots of huge stones, stones that really impressed me. I'd never even seen them before. And then he has this long causeway that leads down to a valley temple that today is unexcavated. It's just sitting in the desert out at Giza. You can walk up to it, but you're going to be standing on top of it because it's completely buried in the sand. But this one would have gone all the way up to the Nile as well. And one of the other key pieces of evidence that kind of locks the construction of these pyramids into a certain era is that there's evidence now of this dump site where a town was completely turned on its head and thrown into the desert. It's in this gap of desert just between Menkaura's Valley Temple and Khafre's Valley Temple. And so you have this little gap of desert here, and this town was just and then thrown, buried into the desert.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.